Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. It's Christmas week. Bryce Kuhn here on your screen, Ralph Leary and Will Mannis. We're doing a live show, and we're doing it just a tad bit differently after we won't call it a tragedy that happened, but maybe something that didn't go quite the way that Will wanted it to after he got home from work one day. But instead, we're going to be doing this a little bit virtually. So we're thanks to StreamYard. They're going to be helping us out. You see their logo on the top right. I guess, Will, if you put your hand up like right there, then yeah, there you go. StreamYard right there. The crowded booth right there. So Bryce Kuhn, Ralph Leary, and Will Mannis today. Will Mannis drinking out of the Nukes Eatery Cup, I think that was. I might have caught that very quickly. But listen, a lot of college football news, no doubt about it. Yesterday, we were really busy talking with coaches, talking with the College Football Player Chair Committee chair, I should say. And we had all of these people that were kind of wondering, what in the world are the decisions that made? And listen, if you get on social media for in 10 minutes, you see so many different varying arguments. But I want to ask you guys today, we're going to talk about that. It's just going to be a two-parter. We're going to talk about the playoff. We're going to talk about different things with that. But we're also going to talk about what's important down here in the Chattahoochee Valley area. A ton of Auburn fans. Obviously, this coaching search on the loveliest village on the plains continues. And we've seen some candidates that it's been confirmed that have turned down the job. Steve Sarkisian did not do the interview like they thought that he was going to. So we'll talk about that. Will's covering everything Auburn. Ralph's covering everything with the high school recruiting. Two things we'll get here as we get started, some announcements to make. Ralph, Michael Williams participated in the Georgia Elite Classic and absolutely dominated, was the MVP. We're going to be talking to him later this week. We've seen him play twice. Just talk quickly about what this guy, he's a four-star. I would not be surprised if going into his senior year he gets bumped up and what he can bring to the table.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, and you saw me tweet it also, is that he won MVP. I wasn't surprised. I mean, the dude's a freak. He's a massive body. He's got great hands, a great burst of speed, great first step, and he knows what to do when he has to go on a one-on-one battle. And that's what most of those games are going to be, are one-on-one battles against these guys. You're not going to see a lot of double teams. So Michael went a lot on one-on-one on tackles and guards, and he did what he always does and wins those battles. Had a great game. And next year, I really do believe he'll bump to a 5-star. He's got almost every offer in the country. I mean,
yeah, he's got a ton of offers in the country, and I think that's going to be the big thing is he's going to have the opportunity to go wherever he wants. And I think a lot of that might be hindering on one of the things we're going to talk about today. Auburn has a great history of developing some defensive linemen. Could they swoop in, whoever the new coach may be, and snap that one? Because I know right now he's pretty highly regarded for the likes of Kirby Smart at Alabama and Nick Saban, or Kirby Smart at Georgia and Nick Saban at Alabama. So there's no breaking news. Listen, we would appreciate if you comment. Your comment, if you do, will get thrown up on the screen, and we will be able to talk to you as well. It's going to be a ton of fun here today with StreamYard. We're excited because listen, no bad talk against Zoom, but guys, I think we have to move on from Zoom. The amount of corrupted files that we had going on, I think we're going to have to move away. But I want to start it off here. You see at the bottom right there, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Clemson. Completely wrong. That's what I would have liked it to be, because let's just let Clemson play twice. We're going to fix that, though, real quick. I want to ask you guys, the playoff committee comes out. Will, I want to throw it to you first because you were in the press conference with Gary Barta, the committee chair. You had some notes. Overall, I think he dodged the questions of the group of five. And then Chris Vanini of The Athletic asked him, so let's just get to the point. Can the group of five get in? He goes, yes. Vanini comes out with an article today saying he says yes, and here's why I think he lied, not hiding the facts of what he thought. I'll ask you first off, what do you think what were your takeaways from talking with Gary Barta, who is the College Football Playoff Committee chair?
Really, the big takeaway was the value that the committee places on conference championships. I think that was very obvious with Oklahoma jumping up to number 6, being the Big 12 champion, defeating a higher-ranked Iowa State. Really, them jumping Cincinnati, which was the big jump for me, because Cincinnati had been ranked higher than Oklahoma in every college football playoff top 25 ranking this year. And just even appearing in a conference championship, I think they showed a ton of value in that, leaving Notre Dame in the top 4 at number 4 over Texas A&M. And I think Texas A&M is a stronger team than Notre Dame. I think they played a harder schedule. They looked more impressive because, I mean, Notre Dame looked like they always look when they're on the big stage. They just fall apart and got just absolutely blown out by Clemson. But, I think the top two are head and shoulders better than everybody else. What do y'all think about the top four?
Yeah, I think the top four, when you look at it, that's going to be a question. I think there's a couple different arguments about that. And for those who are not well-versed in our website yet, thecreditabooth.com, you can go check out the About page, and the guy in the middle of your screen is technically our group of five connoisseur, we'll call him. Ralph, when you look at this, Gary Barta comes out and says, and we're going to get to some of the bowl games and specifically that you were a part of as well in the press conferences. But when you look and see exactly what was going on kind of across the country, what was able to happen, I think the lack of out-of-conference games, and Will, that's something we heard really hurt. For you, Ralph, not getting too much into the specific conversations, for a team like Cincinnati that really wanted a bowl bid or really wanted that top four spot, would you agree if, let's say that they could have played out of conference, I think they would have scheduled a big game because traditionally Cincinnati's played in Ohio State out of conference. They've played these big games. For you, Ralph, do you think the inability this year to play out of conference maybe hurt Cincinnati's? And let's say they do get an out of conference bid. Let's say they schedule, I don't know, an Ohio State or a Northwestern, and they beat that team. Does that help their case maybe getting into that top four?
Well, one thing that really shocked me was that they didn't take an ACC team at first, because ACC they had their one non-conference game, and I think Cincinnati should have stepped in, took one team on, maybe, Notre Dame, Louisville, Miami, especially, even UNC, and if they compete against those teams, if maybe win those games, I'd put them at 4. I still think they're better than or at least not better. They deserve it better than Ohio State. We only played 6 games and got in their conference championship game because the Big Ten decided to change the rules for them. Not going to get into that, but yeah, Cincinnati's in the future they'll start scheduling bigger games just to give them a better shot to win. To make these playoffs and stuff if they keep going undefeated every year, which I think they can. They're a very good team, very very well coached. So yeah, in the future you need to schedule those bigger games.
And unfortunately, this year they had the inability to. And I think that we would agree, Cincinnati, and we'll talk about this after the Christmas holiday when we kind of look at some of those bigger bowl games, what they have the potential to do, and I think that they're a very talented team. Will, you and I were talking about an hour ago. I think they're probably, and we don't want to make this a Cincinnati podcast or a show, but I think they're probably the only team that can really how they're built, their market, who they have at the coaching. And we came away, we were in that press conference with Kirby Smart and Luke Fickell. And I'll tell you one thing, if you don't know about Luke Fickell, you definitely should look him up because the guy knows what he's doing and he's running that program just like they're Power 5. And I think Cincinnati could beat probably majority of the teams in Power 5 conferences. They probably would have finished second or third in the Big Ten, second or third in the SEC this year. We'll hold off on that conversation, and I want to just get straight down to it. The top 4 is corrected there, scrolling at the bottom of your screen. So you see our graphic right there. Did the playoff committee get it right? And so let's talk about this because I know there's a lot of different feelings, and we have to kind of, I think, attack it from a bunch of different angles. If you want to have the conversation that the group of 5 didn't get in, well, let's just go ahead and say the group, to me, there is not a way right now. There's not a path for the group of 5 to get in the college football playoff. There's not. Coastal Carolina is a great story. We talked about in the podcast a couple weeks ago. Cincinnati is a very, very good team that's been trending upwards. If they do defeat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, it'll be 3 straight double-digit win seasons for Cincinnati and Luke Fickell, who took a team that was 4-8 when he got there and has kind of turned them around. We look at the top 4. Alabama, I think we can agree on the top 2. We don't even need to waste time on that. Alabama, Clemson. Clemson gets their vengeance when they win their conference championship. Which, like Will pointed to, seemed like it was a big topic of conversation. Let's talk about Ohio State. Ohio State plays 6 games. Now, that's one where I think there's a lot of people who are like, listen, they played 6 games. And to me, that's a valid argument. Stop right there. I understand. You sit down, you talk to me, you look at me, you say, Bryce, Ohio State only played 6 games. Alabama lost one of the best centers in college football because they had to play more games. Notre Dame lost their center earlier this year because they had to play more games. Ohio State is coming into a playoff having only played 6 games, which means they're more well-rested. They're not as banged up over the season. They don't have to go through all of the adversity necessary that other teams had to go through. Clemson had to go up to Notre Dame, lose a game, and had a must-win contest this past Saturday that they very much impressed in. When you look, both of you guys, when you kind of look at this, I think to me, we've already touched on the fact that there is a sizable gap between 1 and 2. No doubt about it. Clemson and Alabama are on a different level. There's if we want to tier the teams, those are on a different level. I don't mind, and I am against expanding the playoff. I don't want more than 4 because I don't believe in participation trophies. It's a great story of what these other teams have, but the reason why it seems like 3 and 4 are always up for debate is because of how good 1 and 2 are. Will, you and I talked about this. You could rotate anybody in that 3 or 4 spot, and I would say 99% of people are going to take, and maybe in Vegas as well, is going to take Alabama and Clemson in a national championship game, no doubt about it. I don't care who you put 3 and 4. Really, to me, it's the best game is going to be 2 versus 3 in Clemson, Ohio State. And with the way, to me, they backed themselves into the playoff. Even though they did get the win over Northwestern, they didn't do it in impressive fashion. Meanwhile, Clemson's getting hot at the right time, and that's dangerous. We've seen that across all sports. So for you guys, I'll start with Will on this one. Do you think the playoff committee got it right with the 4, already saying, and Ralph, I know you're going to come in with this one, already saying the group of 5 does not have a viable path to the playoff? Let's throw that out the window. So your Power 5 teams that maybe have had an argument were going to be Texas A&M, who some may argue that their win over Florida was damaged. I don't think so. I think those were just 2 very, very good teams that went at it, and one team won by 6 points. Oklahoma, who won the Big 12, they're a 2-loss team. The only thing I'll say about Oklahoma, you don't want to have recency bias, and that's what they kept saying in the press conferences yesterday. Oklahoma, they made up for what? They lost early in the season, but they got better each week. Will, what do you think? Did the committee get it right, and what would you have done differently if you don't feel like they did?
Well, I feel like they pretty much got it right. I thought going into the season, Ohio State was one of the top 4, and I don't think they did anything on the field to change that, which that could be the wrong way to look at it, but that's the way that I look at it. I said earlier, I think Texas A&M is stronger, but it's hard to leave out Notre Dame after they beat Clemson earlier in the year. You hear coaches say it all the time. It's hard to beat the same team twice, and that was on full display in the ACC championship on Saturday. So I think the committee, they got it right. Just you look at resumes. Notre Dame has that conference championship appearance over Texas A&M. It could have been different if the ACC played divisions like the SEC did, but they decided not to, and Notre Dame was in the game. Ohio State, like you said, didn't look very good against Northwestern, but that Northwestern defense is really good. They're only giving up 15 points a game this year, and they gave Ohio State a lot of problems. But that Ohio State has shown that they are a more complete team, especially than in years past. They have a really, really good defense, and they can run the ball really well. And Justin Fields, when he's on, he's unbeatable. So I do think they are in the top 4.
And I think before we throw it to Ralph, I think that if Ohio State plays the full slate, I don't have a problem putting them in. Now, I don't think the Big Ten's a strong conference. Northwestern, and correct me if I'm wrong for the people watching, I think that they have a top 10 defense. If I'm not mistaken, they have a very good defense, giving up around 15 points a game. That's going to win you some ball games. If Northwestern makes a couple plays on Saturday, they win that game, especially with some of the turnovers. But you talk about an Ohio State team at full strength. Trey Sermon, good Lord, the guy put the team on his back. He had a couple runs that were, I'm not putting them in the conversation, but if we would have seen more of them, Heisman-type moment runs, big-time running back runs that will get you on SportsCenter late at night with Scott Van Pelt. Ralph, I'll throw it to you now. What did the playoff committee get it right? And I know you didn't like Ohio State there. If they get the full body of work, I'm okay with putting them there. But what's your case for maybe someone else and why they didn't get in?
Well, I will make a case for A&M. I really do think A&M had
Jimbo Fisher is listening. There you go.
Well, Jimbo Fisher's listening. What you said after the Tennessee game probably wasn't necessary because you beat a pretty bad Tennessee team. But A&M got robbed, I think. And I'm saying this because I believe Notre Dame deserves that spot. I'm not counting Notre Dame out. I'm not going to beat the bush again with Ohio State. But A&M played a full SEC slate. They went and played Alabama, lost to them. And they got blown out by Alabama, which, who didn't? They scored 40 or more points every game. A&M beat Auburn on the road, which is always a tough place to play. We know this. They beat Florida at home, and they beat everyone else they played. It's a great schedule for them. Them not getting a shot at the playoffs is not good for me. I don't like that. But then again, you would put them at 4? Would you want to see them play Alabama again and get boat race probably again? So if I make the case for A&M still, it's just that they had a better, strength of schedule. They played more games over at Ohio State. I do believe Notre Dame deserves to be in the top 4 because they did beat Clemson. I mean, that's the number 1 or number 2 team in the country, and was number 1 at the point, I believe. So, you don't count Notre Dame out. I think you count Ohio State out. But 1 and 2, like we said, are slated in there always, and they're the best teams in the country.
And I think, too, that just speaks to the conversation around 3 and 4. And, it doesn't matter because Notre Dame's going to get rocked when they play Alabama. I mean, Ohio State, they've backed themselves in. Justin Fields played a terrible Big Ten championship game. The Colts didn't even paint the field. I mean, it was just, all this craziness. But I think the conversation is because people are mad. It's because 1 and 2 are so good. Like, they are on a different plane right now than anybody else. The consistency. And for conversations, and Georgia fans are watching this. Auburn fans are watching this. I don't think we have any Ohio State fans. I did look at the analytics, guys. We do have some people from Russia that tune in. So that's really cool. They tune in. So hi, Mother Russia. Appreciate you. Go back and give me a team that's had the consistency that Alabama and Clemson has. Alabama's been in the conversation since 2009 when they destroyed Colt McCoy. And, they've been in the conversation since then. You go back and you look at a team in Clemson that established dominance. They had Taj Boyd. They had some great teams. They take a step up when Deshaun Watson, and they've been there since. Georgia, they've peaked around there a little bit. They've made it. They've been in the conversation, but they can't get over the hump in the SEC title game. Auburn, you have to play one of the toughest schedules in the entire country every single year. Just give you the championship trophy if you decide you're going to beat Alabama and Georgia and then probably have to maybe beat Georgia or Florida in the SEC title game. What other teams contending? Oregon, they're there. Okay, Florida State, well, they're not even in the picture anymore. Alabama and Clemson are that good, and I think that's what makes them so good. We're going to bring in some questions now. We have a opportunity to talk about the playoff. We're going to keep doing it. So listen, folks, questions about the playoff, we'll bring it on, and we're excited to do that. Josh Folds over on Facebook, we appreciate you watching. Georgia got robbed for poor QB choices. JT Daniels plays against Florida and Bama, and we're in the playoffs. Bama may have still beat us, but we definitely get Florida. Listen, I'm not going to argue with that because I think that Alabama would have still beat Georgia. I think they're that talented. It probably would have not gotten such a wide margin in the third and fourth quarter because Georgia did lead that game 24-20. We could have had that conversation back in October. Georgia is number 9 in the country. They're going to play Cincinnati in the Sugar Bowl. I'm sorry, not the Sugar Bowl. They're going to play Cincinnati in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. I think I made that mistake earlier as well, so apologies to all the Bearcat fans watching, if there's any in Mother Russia that are tuning in today. But I think that when you look at exactly what in the world is going to happen going into the future of this playoff, listen, you just have 2 teams that are dominating the sport. Enjoy it. You're never going to see something like this again. Have we ever seen anything like it before? No. We've never seen anything like really what Alabama's done. And maybe I'm saying that because I was born in 1997 to those watching, and but your teams like Miami, Nebraska back in the 90s, you go back and you look at some of those. We have some more comments that are coming in and questions. But I don't think we've seen anything like what Alabama's doing. I don't think we've seen anything what Clemson's doing. I don't know if we've seen 2 teams that have been so dominant in the sport. They're in the conversation every year. And coaching decisions thrive off of those 2 guys. I mean, they really do. The ACC is now experiencing what the SEC did a couple years ago. You had to bring in Mike Norvell. There was talk about Justin Fuente leaving Virginia Tech. I think he's a good coach. They just haven't played very well. The ACC is having to make some decisions. Heck, even Georgia Tech said, Paul, we're going to see you, Paul. See you later. We're done with the triple option. We got to bring somebody in so we can be competitive. So when you have that, I think it just drives the narrative of what the college football playoff did. To me, if they play a full slate, I'm fine with these 4 teams getting in. I really am. I'm fine with that. To me, if Texas A&M would have got in, I'd have been okay with it. I don't have an argument against it. It's just the 4 that they chose. So I think that's kind of how the playoff committee goes. And I'll tell you one thing, guys, I'm really enjoying StreamYard. I'm just going to tell you right now, this is a lot of fun. It's a good opportunity to have StreamYard with today. We're going to get to some more questions right here. Noah Severson, Washington State got robbed. Listen, Noah, Mike Leach is no longer there. I'm sorry to say, buddy, but he is I don't want to say he's not a factor anymore, but I think that I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be quite there. Go ahead.
I think Washington State got robbed of a coach, because you saw what happened with Mississippi State this year. They weren't very good with Mike Leach, and Washington State was very good with Mike Leach. So the only thing Washington State got robbed of was a coach.
Mm-hmm. They got robbed of a coach, and I think too, when you look at it, I think Will had to step out for a second, so we'll bring him back in the call here in a second. So right now, me and you, Ralph, it's just going to be us running the show. We're going to get to the coaching job. Blake Robinson over on YouTube, watching on our YouTube page. I see you there, so don't worry. Josh, we already got to you. And I know, Blake, you had another one. We'll go ahead and throw yours up here. Blake, what if Alabama gets Conference USA officials in Big Ten replay versus Notre Dame and finally gets some holding calls and targeting calls that stand? Blake, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen in the college football playoff? But I think that it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the playoff, and kind of what happens. Will, there you are, my friend.
Welcome back.
I don't know what happened. I think my internet.
Listen, I was just talking about StreamYard and what they're able to do.
No, I think my internet just decided it needed a break.
Hey, shout out to Nomad Internet, because your boy is going live today on Nomad Internet. We appreciate it.
Sponsor?
That I don't know. We'll have to see. But Blake, if they indeed do get some calls, we're going to have to see what happens. I'll let you throw in another one. Did you see State smash Missouri? Also, State paid way more money per year versus Washington State. You're right. It's not a big difference, I would say. Blake's just coming in with the comments. Listen, he was making $3 million a year and now $5 million. I will take it. I'll take the $2 million jump. Mississippi State's got some good things going for them. They're going to be once Leach gets his players in there and for his scheme, they have a really good chance to go 9-3 or 8-4 and make the Liberty Bowl. So that'll be a fun opportunity for them.
They'll be in a better bowl than that.
Maybe the Outback Bowl.
We'll see.
Outback Bowl.
We'll see. Let's head over and let's get to a conversation that all of us love. We love to talk about it. I think the group messages are already, going crazy for it.
Would you give Will a 5-minute rant?
Is your top candidate at Auburn, and why? Now, listen, let's have this conversation. Let's throw it back a little bit. I want to go ahead and throw one of the comments up there. Rachel Leary, sorry, Kiffin is staying with Ole Miss. Yes, he is. He's going to stay there. Yeah, he's not leaving. The lane train will not make its way to the loveliest village on the plains. I don't believe that'll happen. Blake, I'm going to get back to yours. You're watching over on YouTube. We appreciate it. Billy Napier has just now turned the Auburn job. Yes, that did happen earlier today. Napier going to stay with Louisiana, not Lafayette, just Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns. And listen, they got a good thing going over there. I think that they really had an opportunity to beat Coastal Carolina. Will, you said it earlier. It's tough to beat a team twice, but they had a really good chance to do that. This past weekend, the game did get canceled due to scare of the flu. So we will talk about the Auburn job and what exactly is going on with that. Who's your top candidate at Auburn? And I'm going to throw this down here on the bottom line. And this is mine, so it should just go out without saying. And I just got out of a group message that said, you're a moron. But here you go. Bill Clark to Auburn. That's what I want. That's what I like. I'm going to state my case, and then I'll let you guys go. I'm even going to put the camera on myself. Here we go. Bill Clark to Auburn. Here's why. Resurrected a UAB program that has been struggling. No doubt about it. They were a struggling program. They hadn't made a bowl game. They make a bowl game, and then their president says, no more. We're not going to have a football program anymore. So what next? You wait 2 to 3 years, you bring another program back. In your first year, you win the Conference USA title. Second year, you go to the Conference USA Championship. You lose, but then in year 3, you win it again. They've won 2 out of the last Conference USA titles, and this is the big thing for me. Now, a little bit of my experience comes in the recruiting game, so I understand what it takes to build a program and have a foundation. Auburn cannot afford to lose any traction that they have in recruiting. They cannot do it. It's not going to be possible. If they do it, they're going to take a step behind. They're going to be a 7 to 8 win team perennially, and they're going to be the next Tennessee. That's exactly what's going to happen. If you would have gotten Mario Cristobal fantastic. Great job. You get the big name hire. I don't think he's worth it, but you would have gotten it. But Oregon, they get a participation trophy opportunity to go to the Pac-12 championship, and then they win it. So, okay, what does that say? That says he's going to stay. He gets that $24 million extension. He's going to stay at Oregon. Okay, you look elsewhere. What else? Where else are we feeling? Let's go to Billy Napier. He's a hot shot. He's a sexy candidate. Let's see what the sexiness of Billy Napier can have. He stays. He's already turned down the South Carolina job. I mean, he's not going to come to Auburn. Why would you come to Auburn when you have to play Alabama and Georgia every single year? Oh, throw in Texas A&M. They're on the rise. And then let's just schedule a non-conference game against Clemson every single once in a while, and let's get an A+ schedule on the NCAA 14 rating. Where else do you look? Well, look within your own state. These are the two candidates. I know Ralph's going to hit on it, so I'm not going to take it away from him. Neil Brown's one of them. Mine is Bill Clark, because Neil Brown was at Troy. He knows the recruiting grounds. He knows the high school atmosphere in the state of Alabama, one of the richest recruiting states that are in the country. The Southeast, let's not even get started, combined with Alabama, Georgia, and Florida, one of the most fertile regions for recruiting grounds there is. Now, my case for Bill Clark, he already has relationships with some of these players. He might have jumped the gun and offered these guys knowing that Auburn and Alabama were going to offer before he did. So that's why he had to say, let's offer these guys. He's built relationships with some of these guys. He's from Birmingham. He knows the talent. Birmingham's got a great football atmosphere. Also, he used to coach at Prattville. Those around this Chattahoochee Valley area, they know how good Prattville is as a high school program. He's born and he is bred here in the state of Alabama. I'm talking about just across the river. I think he's a prime candidate. Auburn doesn't have necessarily maybe the money issues we think they do, but if you want to under-the-radar hire instead of going for a big splash, I think your big splash opportunity is gone with Cristobal. And Will, I'm going to ask you this when I bring it back to all three of us. But Bill Clark, to me, gives you an opportunity to have some consistency and also bring in kind of a new vision and a new voice. That's why I think so. I'm going to bring it back to you real quick before I let you two guys go. Pat Fitzgerald has gotten some interest from schools. I have no idea. I don't even think this is an option. But if Pat Fitzgerald, who is he's a defensive-minded guy. Listen, you play some cold football up there in the Chicago area. You got to play tough defense. You know you're not going to outscore an Ohio State team. I don't know if that's a candidate. We don't have to talk about it. But, Will, I'll let you go. And then Ralph's going to end us off with some Neil Brown conversation and that. But, Will, who do you like? And maybe Bill Clark, maybe I took your glory, but who do you like and why?
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Bill Clark a lot. And pretty much for all the reasons that you said. He knows the recruiting area. He knows he's already had to go head-to-head against Nick Saban at Alabama and Kirby Smart at Georgia and everybody else in the Southeast at trying to get some talent out of Birmingham, which is a hotbed for high school talent. And, his name has already gotten a lot of flack from the Auburn faithful because he's not the big name that everybody was wanting because everybody was wanting Cristobal. And I honestly think it was a done deal too, but Oregon kind of gets backed into the Pac-12 championship, and that bought Oregon some time, and they made sure they weren't going to let him leave. So that's out of Auburn's control, and I think a lot of these coaches that have turned it down is out of Auburn's control. To me, Bill Clark, he's a guy that can do it. He's a culture builder. A lot of people say Auburn needs a culture change. All this dude has done at UAB is win. I mean, you talked about it, brought him back from the dead, 3 straight Conference USA title appearances. He's won 2 of them, just beat Marshall on the road last week to win another Conference USA title. I think he's a really good coach. I think he's a good fit at Auburn, personality-wise. And he knows what the grind is, going from no football program to expecting to win at least conference championships, which when you're at Conference USA, what more can you do? So I really like Bill Clark. I think you're.
I'm sorry about that. The mute button here I had to find. Ralph, before I throw it to you, I want to say this real quick. You talk about Bill Clark and you talk about what he can bring. I think he's a fantastic candidate. And Ralph, I will say my thoughts on Neil Brown after you, but I think for Bill Clark's purpose and what he has, I'm going to go back to recruiting. I'm going to keep hitting that home. We've talked about it. You have to maintain the status quo or the level you're at right now if you want to compete. You do. Auburn has the talent right now to go 9-3 or 8-4 next year. We're fine with that. But when Bo Nix leaves, they're going to have the guy come on. I don't even know. I don't think that it's necessarily a given that you can go with necessarily. You can't go with a splash hire. There's nobody out there. I mean, if Sarkisian was going to do the interview on Sunday or Monday, whenever it was, I think you'd be a fool to not at least offer him the job. Now, I don't think you throw a blank check at his feet and say whatever you want, but what he's done in Alabama, and I was texting someone right before this, I don't know if he's watching, but if he is, then I'm stealing your quote from your text message. Sarkisian is maybe working his way in to be Alabama's head coach when Nick Saban retires. And I don't think we're quite ready for that conversation yet, but I think it's a real thing.
I think. Not to cut you off, but I really think that's what happened. And that's why he didn't interview, because he was scheduled to interview on Sunday and didn't do it. And, and Alabama, they would be crazy just let him walk away like that, especially to go to your in-state rival.
And I don't think that's going to happen. The only block that we've talked about with Bill Clark, and I promise you, Ralph, I'm getting to you. I know you're on the edge of their seat with all the Troy people tuning in to see if Neil Brown's coming back to the Dixie State. I want to know, does Alabama, and people don't know this, but does Alabama block Bill Clark from leaving UAB to go to Auburn? Because a lot of people don't know that UAB is kind of not officially, we'll say that, University of Alabama, Birmingham, but there's a lot of money involved with this situation and how Alabama has kind of integrated behind the scenes, how they're involved with UAB. Do they let him go to Auburn? I don't know. But before we get to that, Ralph, I want to go ahead and let you talk about Neil Brown. For those who don't know, Neil Brown's at West Virginia right now. He was the coach at Troy. He took them, had a couple upsets, Nebraska, LSU. Correct me wrong, I think they won the Sun Belt when he was there. So he gets the big hire. I think he's in a great position right now at West Virginia. Not a ton of pressure. You're in a Big 12 conference. You have a team that has a history of being really good. Kind of fallen off after Dana Holgorsen kind of extended his welcome there. Ralph, talking about Neil Brown, what could he bring to this Auburn team, and why do you think that may be a good hire?
Well, I'm just going to okay, there we go. I'm just going to say one thing about Bill Clark, and people have shot him down because he can't recruit when you're a Conference USA team competing against Alabama, Auburn, Troy, South Alabama in the same state. So if you're saying Bill Clark can't recruit, you're wrong. He can recruit very well. He's just competing against the best teams in the country. Now, back to Neil Brown. Neil Brown is a guy who has bounced around from programs from Kentucky to Troy. Now he's at West Virginia. He knows what he's doing. He can recruit very well. He knows the area, Bill Clark might know him better than him. But he took Troy from being a 4-8 team, no bowl game, to a 10-3 team, going to a Dollar General Bowl, winning it first bowl game in, I believe, 4 years. Then next year, 11-2, upset victory over LSU on the road. Went to the New Orleans Bowl, blew out North Texas. A year later, 10-3, upset win at Nebraska. And, some of the losses he had a road loss to Boise State by 6 and a road loss to Clemson by 6. Neil Brown can get it done anywhere he goes. His first year at West Virginia wasn't spectacular. This year, definitely made it better. And next year, if he stays at West Virginia, I don't see anything with him going 9 wins next year. He's getting his players in, he's getting transfers in. He's making a change there. He's doing what he was brought in to do. And if Auburn goes for him, that's what they're going to get. You're muted again, Bryce.
I keep getting muted. I don't know. We need to get on our intern to get done with that.
Wendell?
Or Russell. I don't know whoever it is behind the camera today. I'm going to bring it back real, Ralph. The guy in your picture over there to the left of your screen. Now, if people can see, is he going to be recruiting that guy? Is that a guy that's going to be recruited to play number 77 in blue? I don't know.
I believe the word would be used as he is washed up.
Washed up.
Okay. I don't think he's ever going to come back to play football ever again. He has 4 years eligibility, but I don't believe he's going to play anywhere anytime soon.
I don't know why the comments weren't coming through, but Brian Mushan, who's a big-time watch and listener of the show, he did say, just going back to the playoff conversation for just a second, he wants 8 teams in the playoff. Brian, I don't want to expand the playoff. I do understand why in a year like this it might be a good thing. I don't necessarily want to expand the playoff, but I do understand the argument and where it comes from. Just personal preference, and that's the beauty of kind of the whole conversation. That's why I love college football. It's the only sport. Now, people will say it's the only sport where teams can never have a chance, but I say it's the only sport where it is so extremely, extremely hard to make the postseason. It's not a national invitation for whoever. It's a really, really hard thing to make the postseason in college football. So thanks, Brian, for the comments as well. Blake, I want to bring you in on this because you had the conversation. You're against Neil Brown and Bill Clark completely. Come on, guys, not a chance. Those two didn't even get interviews for the opening at any other SEC schools. Now, listen, the only reason they didn't get the interviews is because Neil Brown had just taken a West Virginia job. I think South Carolina knew they either wanted Napier or Shane Beamer the whole way. Like, I think that they knew that going in. When we talk about Bill Clark, listen, he hadn't had a chance to do what he was doing at the time. I mean, he's in the middle right now of UAB's renaissance and what they're able to do in Birmingham. We talked about the recruiting opportunities they have there. So I don't know if he was necessarily an option right there to begin with. Blake, we're going to go to you again. We appreciate the comments. We have to send you a T-shirt because you have thrown in a ton of comments. I think Auburn will get somebody proven developed quarterbacks for Bo Nix. Think somebody like Mullen, Freeze, Kiffin. Now, if you're referring to, and Blake, I'd love for you to throw in another comment because I want to make sure I don't interpret this the wrong way. Not specifically Mullen, Freeze, or Kiffin, but a guy with a mindset like them. Will, we've talked about this. We've talked about what they can do. When Kevin Steele was rumored to be a big-time candidate, the conversation centered around you're going to have to bring in an offensive coordinator that can develop quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. Now, listen, you two guys grew up Auburn fans. I grew up a Georgia fan. I think the big thing with that is, we put our biases aside and we kind of just put on college football fan caps, which is what this whole show is about. We're just a fan of college football. Auburn has struggled big time with developing quarterbacks. Like, I'm going to say the name. Don't cry. Kyle Frazier. Kyle Frazier, Jeremy Johnson. Mm-hmm. These are guys that came in very highly touted and busted. Now there's Byron Cowart. Thank God he didn't play quarterback. He would have killed somebody. But I think when you look at it,
he was a defensive end for those that don't know.
Yeah, let's look at.
I was talking about the top recruits.
Auburn's successful seasons since 2010. Okay. And when I mean successful, I mean SEC championship. Like, not 10-2 is great, but I'm talking about like elite level because that's what we're concerned about here is elite level. SEC championships are great at all. That's fine. Let's do that. But if you don't ever make the big dance, then who cares? We'll see it. Cam Newton comes in as a transfer. Fantastic player. One of the most dominant seasons we've ever seen in college football. Nick Marshall, DB turned quarterback who ran the offense just about as well as you could have asked him. And then you have Jarrett Stidham. Now, Jarrett Stidham comes in as a transfer. I don't think he was utilized correctly whatsoever in the offense. Very talented guy. He's not done too well right now with New England, but that's a whole mess with the Patriots. Those are all transfers. The first homegrown guy to have any semblance of success, Bo Nix. I mean, in all actuality, you have to go back to Jason Campbell, in my opinion, to a quarterback who had really put Auburn at an elite level. Now, Will, I know you grew up a diehard Auburn fan. You know the quarterback history a lot better than I do. We talked about the playoff. Now we're just kind of focusing on Auburn here. The last homegrown quarterback to take them to an elite level, not an SEC championship appearance in an Outback Bowl, not an SEC championship in the Sugar Bowl. I'm talking about in the national championship conversation like they were in 2004. When everyone felt like they got snubbed. It's really been Jason Campbell, a bunch of, grocery guy stockmen, and these other guys. And I say that with all due respect. You had Chris Todd. You had a lot of these guys. It was a transfer. But when you look at what Auburn have to do, Blake, I think you're completely correct. He also throws in there, Blake, he even says Mike Leach has a proven record of developing quarterbacks. Gardner Minshew, one of those guys that was able to get drafted and have a starting job. But I think they have to look offensive. I feel like you have to look offensive. Go ahead, Will, Ralph, real quick.
Real quick, though. Gardner Minshew transferred. He started at Troy, just to let you know.
And West Virginia and East Carolina and a ton of other schools. But, Will, when you look at this, Auburn fans have to be pulling their hair out because when you look at this program, everything's there, but you're sandwiched in between two of the biggest dominant giants in college football right now from a recruiting standpoint. Now, one team's there because they're in the playoff every year, and the other team's on the cusp of it, Georgia and Alabama. Now Dan Mullen's cranked up in Florida. Okay, he's in Gainesville, near the state line of Georgia. Miami, completely almost locked down there. They're kind of a formidable opponent again. They're a third or fourth team in the ACC now. Florida State, you got to believe they're going to do better. They're a top 30 recruiting class right now with Mike Norvell at the helm. Texas, okay. Well, Jimbo, he's over there. What Auburn historically has recruited very well. I know I'm leading a lot into this, but where in the world does Auburn go? What do you do? A state of the program, if you might. Hey, they give the president a state of the country address or whatever it is. I want a state of the program address because you've been very passionate about the fact this may turn into a Tennessee situation. They made Fulmer leave, had the Kiffin, and then brought in Orange Pants Dooley, and Lord knows what happened from there.
Yeah, so things at Auburn right now are not looking too good. Your top choice more or less turned you down in Cristobal, but he ended up getting an extension. Your second choice, Napier, turned you down. Your third choice, Sarkisian, looks like he turned you down too. I mean, Auburn, they look like they don't know where to turn. This whole coaching search from the beginning, I don't think was handled well. I mean, firing Malzahn 3 days before signing day, it was obvious that the powers that be at Auburn just kind of punted on this recruiting class that wasn't looking too great anyway. And then they named Kevin Seeley interim head coach, which I thought was bizarre. This is a totally new situation I don't think anybody's ever seen. And so I don't know really where Auburn goes. And that's why I like Bill Clark. I think he's a safe bet at this point. He's going to keep you out of trouble, which, Tennessee was reeling after they had Kiffin, and Kiffin left them. They ended up getting on probation. Clark's not going to do that to you. Clark's going to bring a winning culture. Auburn just needs a winner. Auburn needs a winner leading the program right now. And because you look all over, like Bryce said, you look up and down this roster, they should be going 8-4, 9-3. And if Auburn, whoever they put in charge, doesn't do that the next couple of years, I think they made the wrong choice and they're setting themselves back even further. So this coaching change is probably the biggest that Auburn fans have seen in a very, very long time.
I think, too, I unmuted myself, guys, so don't worry. I think, too, Blake coming in with Sark declined to even interview, and I think that would have been a great hire. Honestly, I think it would have. We're talking about what is the state of Auburn's football program. We got about 15 minutes left here on the show. We're going to go the full hour. This might be something we should do. This is a ton of fun. We're enjoying ourselves here. I want to wrap up this last 15 minutes. We've talked about the playoff. We've talked about they made the right decision. We've talked about Auburn. But let's get into some of the conversation we had. Now, this was the second piece of the announcements I wanted to talk about. 3 years ago, I sat down at Giovanni's Pizza in Phoenix City, Alabama, and sat there across from my dad, and we had a 50-minute preview, pretty in-depth, honestly, of Oklahoma and Georgia, one of the most famed Rose Bowl games and bowl games and playoff games we've ever seen, whether you're a Georgia fan or not. I mean, just a fantastic football game all the way around. Little did I know, going into, to 2018, we'd have the opportunity to interview Vince Dooley in his home. We'd have an opportunity to do the things we were able to do, be credentialed for high school playoff events, high school opportunities, and kind of all the stuff. And so I think that it is a really awesome it's a really awesome thing to kind of see where this place has come, where we've gone, and what we're doing. This year has been a tough year on a lot of people. I think for this year, though, it's been really cool. Before you guys came on the scene, I think this summer was one of the more active that I've had with the podcast and everything, interviewing the likes of Andy Burcham, the voice of the Auburn Tigers, Sid Bream, Sid Slide of the Braves, Chip Carey, Ben Ingram, almost the entire Braves broadcast crew, Bill Curry, legendary College Football Hall of Fame coach. So that's been a ton of fun. I think as we get into here, what the opportunity we had almost 3 years to the date yesterday was a crazy one. Where we got to be a part of College Football Playoff Selection Day, the whole media day, Zoom conference after Zoom conference. We had the team here kind of spread out all across the Zoom world. And listen, we're thankful for that. It was a ton of fun. We got to talk with some coaches. I would say by far Mac Brown was the coolest one to talk to. That was a lot of fun, and just his insight on what exactly has been going on there. But guys, I want to get into the conversation. New Year's Six Bowl media days. We talked yesterday to almost every coach. We didn't talk to Saban, and that, or we came close to talking to Saban. That might have been a great thing. We didn't get the chance to, because that would have been interesting. I want to get your guys' take, and I know you were each involved in different media days. We led off with Gary Barta, the College Football Playoff Committee chair. But as we wrap up here at the end of the show, I want to get your guys' perspective on, one, what 2020 has been like, the growth that we've seen of this, from the website in July to articles being written to Ralph, the high school coverage, going out to games. We're going to have one of the teams we covered is playing in the state championship next week. That's a lot of fun. And just overall. So, Will, I'll let you go first, then we'll kind of get into the media day conversation. But, man, for this year and everything that's been seemingly going wrong, or whatever that is, what has this year been kind of for you and everything? And it's interesting. What have you seen?
And this year's been really cool just to be a part of this. I mean, I've kind of always had the itch to write, and especially sports write. So I'm thankful to you, Bryce, for the opportunity to write and talk about sports and try to grow this thing, because it's something that I've always been supportive of you, just as your buddy, and now is working on you with it, just to be passionate about it and want to see it grow. It's been really, really cool.
Yeah, Ralph, I'm going to throw it over to you now. Now, I know Will joined, I think it was late July, early August, near the start of college football season. Ralph, you hopped on about mid to late August, kind of early September for the high school coverage. You and I have got to go to a ton of games across the Chattahoochee Valley area. We've got to talk to some cool guys, some special guys. I think one of the big moments for me was we interviewed one of the local guys, and then he gets a big-time offer, and that kind of came out of the blue, and then you had that relationship. Talk about what this has kind of been like, the ride for you, and we obviously still have a long ways to go, but just kind of what it's been like for you to see all these things.
Well, first off, I want to thank you, Bryce, for bringing me on. I know we've always talked about doing stuff like this together, and I know we've known each other for a very long time, and I know this year's been rough for everyone, and this year also has been a great thing to me, is that I've been able to rekindle friendships with you and Will. I know we haven't been talking very much lately in the past, but one thing about the high school recruiting that I want to bring up was, I interviewed Katie Hutchinson at Harris County about a few weeks ago, about a month ago actually, and he had no big time offers. A lot of small schools were looking at him, and next thing you know, out of the blue, Colorado calls and offers him straight up, first Power 5 offer. I mean, the most excited person in the world about it, and the only thing I could tell him was, congratulations, but this is only the start. You're going to get a lot more coming in, and in next year, we're going to be talking about you again, probably with a few stars next to your name. And I'm hoping to, get in touch with him again soon, probably beginning of summer, maybe in the summer when he's doing spring practice, maybe summer football, all that stuff, and see where he's at and recruiting, and what he looks forward to his senior year, because he's still got a whole other year of football to play, and he's an incredible athlete. He can do about anything on the field that you want him to do. And, I could go on and on about him, but if you go read our article about him, you'll learn more.
And I think that's what's cool, too, to see everyone that's involved, to see kind of how it's come together. We didn't really know. I know I started the newsletter and was like, hey, I want to do this. I don't know how in the world we're going to do it, but it's been a lot of fun. And then you throw in Will in school, Ralph with work, and myself with school. It's been crazy, but we finally get a little bit of break. We're trying to bring more content and work. Yes, Will is our weekend worker. We all have work. But I think I'm thankful for you guys, because it's been a ton of fun. We threw that out there. So just for 3 years in the making, we've had this. And as we wrap up here the final 10 minutes of today's show, what an opportunity we had yesterday to hear from some big name coaches. And I don't want to come off as in a way of like, oh, it didn't starstruck, but I think it was cool because I've had a little bit of opportunities to speak with some really cool people, but I think to see you two guys and specifically Will Well, who was kind of like, holy cow, I'm in a Zoom call right next to like Kirby Smart's like right there. That was a cool thing. And listen, this podcast, I mean, we've been serious. We've had some great shows. We've had some great interviews, but it's also a fun thing. This is almost like a viewpoint from a fan's perspective. We're definitely not experts. We just love to talk the game of college football and all sports, really. It's just tough as a Georgia sports fan to really talk about all sports all the time. So we stick with what's in season. But I think that's what makes it cool, and that's what makes it a lot of fun. Will, what was maybe one of your biggest takeaways from yesterday's media conference? And that spans out from, talking to Sweeney, talking to all of these guys. And I don't know if you were in the Sweeney call. I know Ralph was, or I think he was, but what was one of the biggest takeaways and one of the biggest quotes maybe you just took away? Because you were tweeting, and first off, I was not expecting the master level of tweeting that you had. But, man, I felt like that was awesome. But, Will, for you, what was one of the big quotes you took away from that?
Yeah, well, first, I'm not afraid to admit that I was kind of starstruck to be in a Zoom call and hear, firsthand what Jimbo Fisher has to say, what Mac Brown has to say, Kirby Smart, Luke Fickell. I mean, to see stuff that's not on TV or before it gets on TV, that was really cool. But, a coach, I guess to answer your question about the quote, a coach I've had my eye on the last few years, and I really thought this year would be the year to get a Power 5 job. Doesn't look like it's going to be, is Luke Fickell. He's in a similar situation as UCF in 2017. They get to play an SEC team in the Peach Bowl. They're undefeated. And he was asked a question about, if you beat Georgia, would you claim this as a national championship? And, he drew on his own experience as a coach going, they went to Orlando this year and played UCF on the road. Saw the banner, said 2017 national champs. When he was a player at Ohio State, they played, he was there in the early 90s, I believe. He played a game at Penn State, and they had a banner that said New York Times national champion, whatever year it was. And he said, programs use bowl wins for momentum, and those programs chose to use national championship, claim of a national championship for their momentum. He pretty much said, I don't think we'll do that, but a win would be huge momentum for our program. So and another quote is from Kirby Smart, the same press conference. He was asked about, what the dynamic of this game was, Power 5 versus Group of 5. And he said, the whole Power 5, Group of 5, that's for you guys. That's for the media. We don't talk about that. Luke Fickell was asked the same question. He said, I don't even know what that language is. We don't know what Group of 5 even means at Cincinnati. So that was really cool to get their firsthand perspective on, like what the big talk is and the kind of division in the FBS right now.
I'll throw it back over to you, Ralph. You were involved in some of the conferences as well. I think most notably maybe Dabo Sweeney's and kind of that matchup with Ryan Day as well. What was maybe a quote that stood out to you or something that a coach said that maybe, man, I didn't really know this, the coach was thinking this, or this is, that program's got a lot going for him?
Well, first off, I wasn't there with Ryan Day and Dabo Sweeney. So, a lot of talk was, to Ryan Day was questions were being asked like, you only played 6 games. Do you think you deserve to be in here? And he kept saying, I think we've proven in the past few years that we're one of the best teams in the country. And, we're proving this year that we got a chance to play in our conference championship thanks to the Big Ten. He kept going on and on about how, we're a talented team. We got talented players. We can compete in this league and we can compete in the playoffs. So, and then, they were thrown to Dabo, do you think Ohio State deserves it? And he's like, yes, they're one of the best teams in the country. There's no other team I think we want to play besides them. I think he wanted to say play Bama, but I think he's waiting for the championship game to talk about Alabama. But another thing was, and I know it's not about Dabo Sweeney and Ryan Day, is when we're talking to Mac Brown and Bryce got the opportunity to ask him a question. And just seeing Bryce talk one-on-one with Mac Brown for a second was pretty cool.
Yeah, man, that was wild. Mac Brown, obviously a College Football Hall of Famer, comes out of retirement, goes and coaches at North Carolina. And I talked about it on 92.9 The Game the other day, and I said, I really feel like that's a program who they can really establish themselves as a number 2 in that ACC conference. And we were talking about they finished number 3 in the conference. Notre Dame's not going to be in it next year unless something crazy happens. So they are a de facto number 2 in that conference. They brought another 4-star defensive back earlier this week, and I think I kind of laid into that. this is an opportunity, and I mean, just to hear what Mac Brown had to say was just, this is an opportunity for those guys who had a 2-win or 4-win season 2 years ago to play on one of the biggest stages of their lives. And for a lot of these guys, they're not going to get an opportunity to play in the NFL. So this is it. I mean, this is an Orange Bowl, man, one of the most historical bowls you can think of. I mean, it has, a lot of pride taking if you can take that one home, and they're going to play against a very good Texas A&M team. So it's going to be a ton of fun to watch. But listen, this has been a ton of fun. I've really enjoyed this. StreamYard, thank you. This is awesome. We appreciate the graphics. We appreciate everyone's comments as well. I know we made some new friends. Blake Robinson sent a message, said, hey, we appreciate it. Thanks for chatting. Enjoyed it. See you next time. We love it, guys. Come join the booth. That's what we're going to call it. We may have to make some T-shirts and say join the booth because it's a ton of fun. Make sure to subscribe. If you're listening, if you're watching right now, like on Facebook, follow us on Facebook, follow Twitter and YouTube. We have all of our stuff archived on YouTube. Twitter's where you're going to be able to find some of that breaking news. I know Will's going to be away during the Christmas holidays. He's going to make his way up to up north, just a little ways, still below the Mason-Dixon line. But he's going to be keeping tabs on kind of what's going on with the Auburn coaching search as we get closer and closer. So we appreciate everyone for watching. thecrowdedbooth.com. Subscribe. We're gonna have a deal running actually starting tomorrow morning, completely free. Just sign up. If you sign up before the new year, you get a completely free all access to kind of see what goes on behind the scenes. And make sure to email us at thecrowdedbooth@gmail.com. Let us know how we're doing. We really appreciate it. As for Ralph, as for Will, this has been Bryce Kuhn. We thank you for joining the booth, and everyone have a fantastic day.